Hello everyone and welcome along to the channel and welcome along to our first preview of International Rugby in the Southern Hemisphere for 2016. Now, it's been a pretty long 2 weeks without any rugby. Last weekend was almost like a ghost viewing of nothing at all really to watch in terms of rugby over the weekend. It's a bit strange with so much Super Rugby going on, and all of a sudden, there was nothing. But the wait, hopefully, will be worth it as we have 3 really big test matches this weekend. It kicks off with New Zealand versus Wales, followed up by Australia versus England, and then caps off the big 3 with South Africa versus Ireland. We'll be having a look at those 3 games, my thoughts on who I think's going to win and why. And of course, as always, I'll give my score predictions so we can see just how bad they are next week and have a bit of a laugh over my woeful picking. There's also a few other matches happening over the weekend we'll have a bit of a look at the end, but those big 3 are the ones we'll be having a look at. So let's not beat around the bush, let's go straight into it and have a look at our first match of the weekend, New Zealand up against Wales. The Fortress of Eden Park will play host to this match, and it will be every New Zealander's favourite referee, Wayne Barnes from England, who will be officiating this one. Now, this is the first look at this new All Blacks squad. Now, there's a few points of interest here that I will be picking on, that I'll be watching and taking note of. Mostly will be around the centres. Now, the news over the week about Charlie Ngatai and concussions and all sorts of injury worries going on for him. He was really my pick to start alongside Malachi Fekitoa. Now he's out. George Moala has been pulled in. The pressure really goes on as to who fills that centre position along with Fekitoa. Now, I thought with Ngatai there, the All Blacks had 2 very, very solid centre options, and I had no worries whatsoever. But now that Ngatai's not there, we don't really go into something that's not as good. We just really go into the unknown as to how they can form. And by that, I'm speaking about Seta Tamani Valu. Now, I think he could be a real talent, but is he going to be a real talent now for the All Blacks? George Moala, I don't think is up to international level, so I'm kind of hoping he doesn't actually start the match. So while I say that I don't think Tamani Valu's really ready for this occasion yet, I would have preferred he was off the bench with a game in the bag or 3rd test with the series wrapped up. I think this is the ultimate start for Tamani Valu, and I really would prefer him to see him there over George Moala partnering with Malachi Fekitoa in the centres. The other positions of note that I'm not really worried about, but I'm just keen to see how they put this area together and how they perform together as well. And that is the back row, 6, 7, and 8. Of course, we're going to have Kieran Reid there. He will fill the number 8 jumper, no doubt about that. It's the 6 and 7. I think Kaino will be the 6, and Sam Cane really has to slot to 7. Now, there's no real question from me here whether these guys are good enough to fill those roles. It's just how they're going to fill those roles post Richie McCaw. I mean, that is the biggest hole in this All Blacks team. I know all you Northern Hemisphere people are going to go, but you've lost 8 players after the World Cup. You've lost Mea Lamu. You've lost Conrad Smith, Ma'anonu, blah, 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 blah. It's all rubbish. It's all completely rubbish. There's been players blooded for a long, long time. I mean, the centres are sorted. When it comes down to anything of any importance, I'm talking Lions tour next year. Sonny Bill Williams, Malachi Fekitoa, eat your heart out. That is sorted for next year. What are we doing right now? Moala, Tamani Valu, Ngatai is preparing for the future. These guys will be ready to go when anything important comes along. And then I'm talking World Cups in 4 years' time. You've got to build from somewhere. Kevin Mealamu. So, who even remembers him being an All Black? I mean, Dane Coles has absolutely owned that, and now we have 2 pretty much carbon copies of him sitting on the bench. I mean, the whole thing with all these All Blacks retiring, I mean, McCaw was a very inspirational leader, the enigma of the man that really did his job for him. He was such a phenomenal person, phenomenal player over the years, and that really held him right through to the bitter end. His leadership ability, that's what did it. I think that'll be missed as well. Daniel Carter, another one. I don't have too much concerns. He was a brilliant player there, but I mean Cruden, Sopoaga, Beauden Barrett. But we have gone a long time without Daniel Carter, between years, World Cups, the lot. I mean, Cruden has done the job a lot over the last few years as well, so Carter hasn't been that much of an influence. The reserves are there. I think that whole talk over those players retiring and New Zealand rugby going down the toilet is utter bullshit, and I don't want anyone to mention it because it is just baseless, completely baseless. Okay, other things. I'm going to move on from that because I'll talk about that forever and continuously come up with the points about why we have progressed far past that over the last year or so. The continuity. This is going to be a big one for this All Blacks team. How will they play together? A lot of new faces, a lot of new names. These guys have been in camp now for a couple of weeks. A lot of them play Super Rugby together. A lot of them know each other as well. I think it's all going to seamlessly come together. But what could be the factor is the rustiness coming into an All Black camp and the complacency possibly. I don't think this is going to be an issue, but it's something I wanted to bring up. Do the All Blacks consider Wales maybe not that 100% threat that South Africa would warrant from the All Blacks? I think that's a bit harsh, and I think it's harsh on both sides. I think Wales definitely deserve the respect of a full All Black performance, full strength side, the best team we can put out, and I do think that the All Blacks are not that team by any stretch of the imagination. We've seen in the World Cup, they give everyone, Namibia, Georgia, they get 100% respect, and they get 100% what is coming to them. I don't think the All Blacks at all will be complacent heading into this match whatsoever. This is their first game back after that Rugby World Cup success as well, which is going to be really the big interest around this one as to how they come together. The big number 10 debate has to go on. I don't think there's too much question over which one, if whoever starts. It's more dividing them about who deserves to start the most. Personally, I think Sopoaga is the form number 10, but I do think they'll start with Cruden in this first test match. If the All Blacks win and do it comfortably enough, I think Sopoaga will start test 2. Beauden Barrett off the bench, probably at fullback in some capacity as well, but I don't see Beauden Barrett getting a start. Maybe the third test he might come in, but Cruden and Sopoaga really are the mainstays of the number 10 jumper. We've already mentioned him, no Sonny Bill Williams. People mentioned him in the squad announcement videos. Of course, he's playing sevens. For those of you who are unaware, he is out for this whole season, but has signed with the Rugby Union until the next World Cup. So we'll be there with the Blues as well in the next 3 years until Rugby World Cup time. So it's hard to really pick holes in this New Zealand team. I think the unknown ability of whoever they pick in the centres with Fekitoa could be where Wales may want to attack. Will the man they put there be up for it? We'll find out this weekend. Now, the difference between the three sides travelling to the Southern Hemisphere and the three teams at home is the already established lineups that the visitors had. They've already played a Six Nations campaign, and that will definitely help Wales. Although their performances probably not the best. Losses to England, which will absolutely destroy their confidence, and of course the draw to Ireland would have just really annoyed the crap out of them, I'd imagine. And those were really the only tests that Wales faced in the Six Nations. Scotland, Italy, even France later on didn't really come up to the expectation of Tier 1 international rugby. It's been a long time since Wales has even won against the All Blacks. 1953 is a very, very long time ago, but they've got a very good core, experienced group of players, and I think they're going to be extremely key to this Welsh team performing even to a decent level to challenge this matchup. Now I'm talking about players like Jenkins, Ellerman Jones, Warburton, Faletau, Gareth Davies, and his combination with Dan Biggar. The centre pairing, Jonathan Davies and Roberts, is going to be massive as well. Jonathan Davies and Jamie Roberts have played together what seems like forever. Their experience against possibly the weakest part of New Zealand's team, maybe. I think that is really where they have to target, but I don't think the hard-running game is going to win the centre battle. The sort of game that Roberts brings, I think Fekitoa, Moala, or Tamani Valu will step up to that. They need something different. They need something that will put that doubt into the inexperienced minds. And I don't know if those two, maybe Davies to a certain extent, but I don't know of how their effectiveness is going to be unless they've got something special up their sleeve. And finally, of course, George North, fantastic player on form. They all need to really spark and really drive this team forward. And of course, all that youth that is in the Welsh side as well, and there is a lot of it, a lot of promising players coming through this Welsh setup as well. They will just follow the lead. They will follow the lead of that experienced core. I mean, the likes in the forward pack, you've got plenty of young talent. So all they need to do is get a good start. We need these good, experienced players to perform. They need to be at the top of their game. They need to not get injured. It's a lot of ifs and it's a lot of buts here for Wales. The option is there though, the chance is there, and as we go on to conclude this first segment of the video, I think Wales, if they got a chance to win a match in the series, this is it. Game number 1 is their chance, and like always, I always think in these first matches with the All Blacks, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Wales leading this one at the 50-60 minute mark, around the hour through the match. I wouldn't be surprised if Wales lead this by 3 points, 5 points, 8 points even at one point, but we all know what the All Blacks do when that final 20 minutes comes on. They really grind down their opposition and they just have it their way in that final passage, and I think that is where they will put Wales off the park and close this game out quite nicely. Wales only need that confidence though, and they could hold on, but I don't think they're going to be strong enough in the end to take this one away from the All Blacks, who should scamper home quite comfortably, winning 39-27 over Wales. Now our second match of the weekend finds us crossing the ditch over to Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane, where the Wallabies are up in action against the Red Rose of England. Now this to me is the real series. This is a series that could really go either way. Which team is going to win it? Which team's going to bring the game? That is my big question. If the Northern Hemisphere have a chance to win a series, this is it. England have all the pressure, and that's something we'll come to later on with the English team. But first off, we have a look at Australia, and I think the Wallabies have so many decisions to be made here. The first one, and possibly the biggest decision they need to make, is where and what shirt does Israel Folau wear? Now, he is easily their most destructive and most probable weapon on attack. Does he play in the centres where the Waratahs have been absolutely smashing him through there? And I'll be fair, he's played pretty well there as well. The more he's played there, the better he has got. Or do they put him back to fullback and allow the lineup to almost pick itself? He is really the spanner in the works if he goes into the centres. Speaking about the centres, the other one is the 10-12 combo. Now, I think Australia might have this okay this week because Lealiifano is expecting a child. So he most likely at this stage seems to be out of the match, which would leave an easy decision for the number 10 jumper with the likes of Bernard Foley slotting straight in there. I fully expect Kuranjani to take the 13 jersey, but there's just a lot of possibilities with these players, where they could go, where they will play, and I think if they play full out the back, that will make things all the more simpler for the Wallabies. But so many versatile players, which we'll carry on with as we work into the forwards as well. The back row, I mean, do we see the Hooper-Pocock combination once again? Or where does someone like Sean McMahon come into this? Are we going to see Scott Fardy again, starting at 6? Where does Will Skelton come in with the plethora of locks that are already in this team for the Wallabies? I mean, there's a lot of questions here. Number 8, McCalman, Palu, Pocock, the 7s, the 6s. The options are aplenty. Personally, I think they just have to stick with the Hooper-Pocock-Fardy combination that did so well at the Rugby World Cup. And I guess if that works, do they have to mix it up? Do they keep things together? The decisions need to be made by Australia, and this is where the acid really comes on the coach and the decisions. If it comes off, he looks good. If it doesn't, then it's all bad for Michael Cheika. This is a pretty simple, simplistic way of looking at it for Australia. Win equals confidence. Confidence equals a dangerous Wallaby side. I don't think if England don't put the win away here, they'll struggle for the rest of the series because Australia get their confidence up and they'll be very, very tough to beat. England, on the other hand, England's the type of team that if they beat the Wallabies in this opener here, will be claiming to fame of being the #1 test team in the world. Now, this is what annoys me about England, and I guess maybe it's a Northern Hemisphere thing, but one win, even at home. I mean, look at when they beat the All Blacks in Twickenham 3 years ago, whenever it was. There's such claim to being the world's #1 team and unbeatable and the best in the world really does make no sense as well. It's the fact that one match does not make the best team in the world. Look at World Cups. It takes more than one match to even make it out of your pool now, doesn't it, England? I mean, the Wallabies had no chance at that World Cup last year, and look how well and look how far that team went. I mean, it's one test. Win this series, England. Win it 2-1, win it 3-0, and we'll talk later in the year. But I just hope that these teams, both of them, don't get their heads too big for matchup number 2. We know the Wallabies can win this. We know England can win it. But let's have a good close series and not just focus too much on other things. Let's focus on the rugby, not rankings. Win the series. And then we'll talk about rankings. That goes for both of these sides. What's interesting about this matchup is the coach battle. Michael Cheika versus Eddie Jones. Now, I think Eddie Jones has this one night and day, no problem. He's a fantastic coach, and we've seen what he did with Japan. We've already seen what he's done with England. Can he continue on in that vein? I think if England do pick up a win here in this opening match, it will be because of Eddie Jones. England, though, I think have it all to lose, however, because they are Six Nations champions, and they've got the pressure all on their shoulders to lead the Northern Hemisphere and get a win, because they are the #1 side, possibly facing the weakest of the 3 Southern Hemisphere big heavyweights. I mean, South Africa look really good this year. The All Blacks, we don't really know. They look pretty good on paper. The Wallabies, where are they? Their Super Rugby sides aren't doing too well. Does that transform internationally? Historically, no. But where do we look to go with form other than Super Rugby from the Southern Hemisphere? Now, one man who won't be concerned about this will be Eddie Jones himself, but it is the goal kicking, as we've seen from George Ford in that match against Wales. Copped a lot of flack for missing about 4 kicks in that matchup, and Eddie Jones threw it straight back into the media's face, saying, "We scored a whole pile of tries. How do you pick on a goal kicker?" Now, I see his point, but big tests are decided by goal kicks. And Ford is really going to be on his money if he does start in the number 10. Who does start in the number 10? Will it be Farrell? Will we see that 10-12 between Ford and Farrell like we've seen in the past? I don't think England are going to be able to get away with just scoring tries in this match. Australia will score every point they can. Anything on offer, they will take. Apart from that, England have a pretty settled lineup, I think, and that will play to their advantage. Can they turn into points on the field, though? Can they break down what has historically over the last couple of years been a pretty good Wallaby defence as well? It's going to be a cracking match. I think this is going to be the pick of the weekend. Who will take it? I'm picking Australia just because they're at home and just because they have this uncanny ability to just win matches that they really shouldn't against teams like England, who come into it with all the fanfare, everything going their way, and the Wallabies just kick that apple cart all over the floor. I've got the Wallabies coming out on top 27-23 over England. Now finally we go off to Newlands in Cape Town, where the Springboks are in action against Ireland. Now, probably the least to say about this matchup, because I think this is probably going to be the least competitive of the 3 series. I think England-Australia will be the most competitive. I think Wales have a slender chance against the All Blacks that could result in some decent games as well, but I think the Springboks really should put Ireland to the sword this season. South Africa has finally made those big calls that a lot of their fans have been calling for a long, long time. The question that follows that we won't find out till this weekend is, can they play the way that the fans have been calling for as well? There's been a lot of debates going around about kicking too much in the Springboks jumper. They need to run the ball more. They've got dangerous players that can absolutely carve teams to ribbons that put the ball on the boot far too easily. Are we going to see more of that? I certainly hope not for the fans of South Africa. This is a real chance to put some points on the board against a team like Ireland, who hasn't had the best start to the season and has seems to really fallen off the pace in the last couple of years. The real key point for this Springbok side will be who they put at scrum half. They seem to have got rid of a lot of the dead wood, especially in that position, which will improve very much the speed and their areas of attack, their directness and the ability to attack around the fringes of the ruck should be much improved for the South Africans. And I think there's a lot of players who deserve call-ups that should be there and should have been there quite some time ago, and I think they will be just far too classy, far too attacking, I hope, than the Irish defence will be able to handle. The Ireland, I think for them, the Six Nations was a real disappointment for them. The 2 losses and a draw for a campaign that could have really gone the other way, for a team that's been extremely successful in Six Nations rugby recently. And like I said before, they need to pick up the pace and get back up to that level they were as Six Nations champions and that ability to compete. I mean, don't we all remember that match that the Irish just about ruined the All Blacks' undefeated season? What could have been then the turning point for Irish rugby. But I really do think South Africa look like a side that could challenge for the best team in the world this year, no question about it, if they play the right style. I mean, we know what South Africa's like. It's always a hard ground. It's always a nice day. It's always great running rugby conditions. If they can play that style, they could really, really put a threat around world rugby about how good the side can be. And I think for Ireland, going to South Africa, it could be a tough tour for the Irish. But again, a lot of young players, a lot of new players, a lot of players are making their way in international rugby in that Irish side, and they've got to learn somehow. I think against South Africa, it's a great place to learn to build a team as well, and I think it's going to be better for Ireland in the future, much better than coming maybe to New Zealand or Australia as well for a team that's in Ireland's situation. Always the ability, though, with some real excitement machines in that team as well. The experienced players, the likes of Sexton, if he turns up, if he directs and guides his backline, we could be in for some interesting rugby as well. That number 10 battle between South Africa and Ireland will be exciting to watch. That will dictate the match. The forward battle, we know South Africa should always win that one. No problems whatsoever. Where Ireland can attack, where Ireland can find holes, that is what's going to be the interesting part about this weekend's matchup. I think the Springboks are going to wipe the floor with this one, though. 44-19, absolutely cream the Irish in the first test of that series. Alright, so that wraps up the 3 big matches of the weekend. We do have a couple of others from lower tiers of international rugby taking place as well. The first one, which is really interesting, is Samoa versus Georgia. Now, it's great that Samoa is getting some game time against a team like Georgia, who deserves to be up there and to get more international exposure. This is a start for them. I don't think the Samoans at home and up here will be too strong for the Georgians, however. Argentina, another one in action as well. They're up against the Italians, and oh boy, do Argentina really need to regroup. I mean, Super Rugby's been great for them, but they really have lost their way. Such a great team, and I do wonder very much if things change when the blue and white hoops come on, as opposed to the black and orange of the Jaguares. What's going to come of that? I think Argentina should destroy the Italians, but I just really don't know, after watching them playing Super Rugby recently, what they're going to do. But I do pick them to get a good win over Italy. Canada's in action, and they're at home at Vancouver up against Japan. Now this will be a cracking match. I hope Canada have a real full-strength side as well, because if they got their big-name stars, the one big-name star that can really turn a match upside down, Van der Merwe, of course, they could really challenge this Japanese side, especially with the home advantage. But I think Japan, they've really gained a lot from Super Rugby experience, and they've just got better and better as this season's gone on. I think that's going to put them in great stead, and they should get a good win over Canada. Now, the final match, it's not really an international, but it kind of is occurring in Bloemfontein, where South Africa A are up against the England Saxons. Now, this one could be probably more interesting, and we'll probably learn more about it than we will than the actual South Africa-Ireland matchup. Who's going to win that? I don't even really know the sides too well, but what we will know is what these guys have in reserve, what the up-and-coming is for South Africa and England. I think that's really where the interest will lie in that one. It's in Bloemfontein, so I'm going to back the home team to do the job over the Saxons. Alrighty, that wraps us up. A bit of an extended look at these international lineups, seeing who's only got 3 matches, so we'll dive a bit deeper to have a look at these sides and what we have to look forward to. It's been a long wait for rugby, but international rugby is back. I can't wait for things to get underway. Let me know what you all think about this weekend as well, who you think's going to win these matches, and whatever other matches happening this weekend if you would like as well. I'll see you next week with a bit of a look back, as well as a bit of a shorter look at next weekend's games as well. Chiefs are playing Wales midweek game, which is always good to see next week, so might have a little bit of coverage on that one as well. Would be always interesting to see. But for now, thanks for watching and take care.